Before we dive into this insane story, make sure you're subscribed, because once you hear what happened in this case, you'll want to know what really happens next. Like, comment, and let's unravel this mystery together if you think you can handle it. It began on a quiet Thursday night in late November, the kind of night that looks calm from the outside, but hides something broken underneath. In a small Massachusetts town called Woodridge, police sirens tore through the silence at exactly 2:14 a.m. A call had come in from a panicked neighbor, a scream, a crash, and then silence. When the first patrol car pulled up to 42 Brookside Lane, the house looked ordinary. But inside, everything screamed chaos. A glass coffee table was shattered, the living room lamp had toppled, and a trail of blood, faint but fresh, led from the hallway to the back door. There was no body, no sign of forced entry. Just a missing person. Claire Donovan, 34 years old, a marketing executive who was supposed to be in New York that night for a client meeting. Her husband, Ryan Donovan, was the first to arrive on the scene after police called him. He seemed distraught, confused, desperate to help. He told investigators he had just returned from a work dinner 2 hours away in Boston. Plenty of witnesses, restaurant receipts, even a time-stamped parking ticket to prove it. His alibi was airtight. Detective Ellen Mercer, a 20-year veteran with a sharp instinct for lies, took one long look at him and felt something off. Ryan's face was too rehearsed, his breathing steady, his story smooth. When she asked when he'd last spoken to Claire, he said, "Yesterday morning." She was rushing out the door. But Mercer noticed his phone buzz in his pocket. The caller ID read Claire, and Ryan froze. He fumbled with his words. It must be an old notification. The next day, forensics combed through the house. No fingerprints other than Claire's and Ryan's. No signs of struggle beyond the living room. But the blood? It wasn't hers. DNA results confirmed that. It belonged to someone unknown. The media latched onto the mystery. Vanished executive. Husband's perfect alibi. Blood that doesn't belong. Within 48 hours, Woodridge went from quiet suburb to crime scene circus. Reporters lined the street. Detectives worked around the clock. And still no Claire. Then came the first break. A traffic camera near the old interstate bridge captured a dark SUV at 1:42 a.m., speeding east toward the marshlands. The license plate was partially visible. It was Ryan's. When confronted, he didn't flinch. "That's impossible," he said calmly. "I was in Boston. Check my phone records, my credit card, anything." And he was right, they all backed him up. His phone had pinged in the city, his card had been charged for a late-night drink at a downtown bar. Every timestamp aligned perfectly. Still, Mercer couldn't shake her gut feeling. Something about his calmness bothered her. The kind of calm that doesn't come from innocence, but from planning. 3 days later, Claire's car was found abandoned 12 miles away, near the frozen banks of the river. Inside, her phone, her purse, and a single gold earring. One half of the pair she wore every day. But the most chilling clue wasn't inside the car. It was beneath it. A small patch of dried mud stuck to the underside, mud that forensic teams traced to an industrial site 30 miles from town. A site owned by Donovan Logistics, Ryan's family business. Detective Mercer didn't have enough to arrest him. But she had enough to dig. She started reviewing surveillance footage from every toll booth, parking lot, and gas station between Boston and Woodridge. For days, nothing. Then, she found it, a blurred, grainy image from a gas station off Route 9. A man matching Ryan's height was seen switching cars, from a dark SUV to a rental sedan, at 11:37 p.m. The rental was paid for in cash, under a fake name. Mercer's instincts flared. The timing fit perfectly. He could have left Boston after dinner, driven to Woodridge, committed the crime, and returned before anyone noticed. But there was one problem. His phone record still placed him in Boston the entire time. GPS didn't lie. Or did it? When cyber forensics dug deeper, they uncovered something strange. Ryan's phone had been connected to the restaurant's Wi-Fi for over 3 hours after he supposedly left. A proxy signal. He'd left his phone behind, probably in his jacket, while someone else kept it alive at the bar. Someone was helping him. The alibi that looked flawless was now full of cracks. Mercer started looking into Ryan's inner circle, colleagues, friends, and one name that kept appearing: Sophie Lane, his assistant. She was at the same dinner that night, and she was the last person seen with Ryan before he drove home. When detectives questioned her, she broke down. "I didn't know what he was going to do," she said. "He told me he just needed a few hours, that no one would get hurt. I swear I didn't know she'd disappear." Mercer leaned forward. "What did he tell you to do, Sophie?" She hesitated, tears spilling. "He told me to keep his phone." The room went silent. It was the missing piece Mercer needed, but it also opened a darker question. If Sophie had his phone, and Ryan wasn't where he claimed to be, where had he really gone? Late that night, Mercer returned to the Donovan property with a search warrant. The basement was locked. Ryan claimed the key had been misplaced years ago. When the officers pried it open, the smell of damp concrete filled the air. And then they saw it: footprints. Fresh ones, leading to a false wall at the back. Mercer's flashlight caught something metallic glinting from the corner. She motioned for silence, stepped closer, and pushed the panel aside. What she saw behind it made her heart stop. If you thought Chapter 1 was wild, you haven't seen anything yet. Hit that subscribe button, drop a comment if you think you know what's behind the wall, because the truth about Ryan Donovan is darker than anyone imagined. Detective Ellen Mercer's flashlight cut through the stale air as dust danced in its beam. Behind the false wall lay a narrow concrete chamber, no bigger than a walk-in closet. The smell of rust and mold was suffocating. On the floor sat a metal chair, a bundle of rope, and a discarded cloth soaked in something dark. At first she thought it was blood, but it was motor oil. Someone had been cleaning. Then she saw it, a single item hanging from a nail, a gold earring, the missing match to the one found in Claire's car. The room went still. Mercer's partner, Detective Alvarez, whispered, "This isn't just a hideout. This is where she was." But there was no sign of Claire. No body. No traces of struggle. Just the chilling evidence of someone methodical, someone who had taken their time and planned every detail. Ryan Donovan was brought in for questioning again, this time under arrest for obstruction of justice. He didn't resist. He didn't even ask for a lawyer. He just smiled and said, "You're making a mistake, detective. I didn't kill her." Mercer leaned across the table, her eyes locked on his. "Then tell me what's behind that wall." Ryan's smile faltered for the first time. He looked down at his cuffed hands and whispered, "Insurance." The word hung in the air like smoke. Over the next 48 hours, the investigation turned into a storm. Forensics swept through every inch of the basement. They found traces of bleach, tire marks, and faint fingerprints that weren't Ryan's. The prints belonged to Sophie Lane, his assistant, the same woman who had been holding his phone the night of Claire's disappearance. When confronted, Sophie's story shifted. She admitted to helping Ryan set up a surprise for Claire, claiming it was supposed to be a reconciliation gesture after months of marital tension. "He said he wanted to fix things," she said through tears. "He said it was a private night for them." "I didn't think." Mercer cut her off. "Didn't think what, Sophie?" "That she'd vanish." The truth began to seep out like water through cracks in concrete. Ryan's business was collapsing under debt. His marriage was deteriorating. And Claire had just discovered he was moving money offshore through fake clients. The night she disappeared, she had confronted him about it over the phone, a call that ended abruptly at 11:39 p.m. The motive was clear: money and desperation. But Mercer still didn't have a body, and without it, she had no murder charge. Then came a new lead. A worker at a Donovan logistics warehouse, Caleb Frost, came forward claiming he saw Ryan late that same night near the industrial site where the mud had been traced. "He was loading something into the back of his truck," Caleb said. "He told me to forget what I saw." When police searched the warehouse, they found security cameras, but the footage for that date was missing, the hard drive wiped clean. Still, one backup drive remained in an off-site server. When IT specialists recovered the files, the footage showed Ryan's SUV pulling into the loading bay at 2:03 a.m. The timestamp matched the night Claire vanished. But something about the footage was wrong. The angle was off, the shadows didn't line up with the lighting. When Mercer slowed it down frame by frame, she saw it. A man in a dark hoodie standing in the corner of the warehouse, just barely visible. He wasn't Ryan. Whoever he was working with him. The next morning, Sophie Lane's apartment was found empty. Her phone disconnected, her car gone. She had vanished without a trace. It was as if she'd evaporated. Mercer now had 2 missing women, one possibly dead, one on the run, and one man whose alibi was starting to crumble faster than he could rebuild it. Ryan, still calm under questioning, told Mercer, "You're chasing ghosts, detective. Claire's not dead. She's smarter than you think." Hours later, Mercer got a call from the FBI's cyber unit. They had traced an encrypted email sent from an anonymous IP in Maine, an email that contained a short, shaky video clip. It showed Claire, alive but terrified, sitting in what looked like a dark room with concrete walls. Her voice trembled as she said, "They're watching me. Don't trust anyone." The clip ended abruptly. No timestamp. No metadata. Just one chilling clue, the sound of ocean waves in the background. Mercer played the video over and over, trying to catch any detail, a reflection, a sound, a clue. Then she noticed something in the corner of the frame, a red shipping crate with the code DLX-09 stenciled on it. She recognized the prefix instantly. It belonged to Donovan Logistics. It wasn't just Ryan's business. It was his cover. That night, search teams moved fast. The company owned several storage sites along the Massachusetts coast. By dawn, they located the one marked DLX-09, an abandoned shipping yard 2 miles outside of Portland. Inside the first container, they found old equipment and boxes. The second was empty. The third locked from the outside. Mercer's hand trembled as she turned the latch. Inside, the smell hit her before the light did. Damp salt, oil, and fear. She called out softly, "Claire?" A faint voice answered back. They pulled Claire out moments later. Weak, dehydrated, but alive. She had been trapped for 5 days, bound to a chair with her own scarf. Between sobs, she whispered, "He said it was my fault, that I ruined his life. But I wasn't supposed to die." As paramedics rushed her out, Mercer stood frozen, watching the rescue lights flicker across the steel walls. The perfect alibi had finally collapsed. But then Claire said something that made Mercer's blood run cold. "He wasn't alone that night," she whispered. "There was someone else. Someone who told him what to do." Mercer leaned in. "Who?" Claire looked up, her voice breaking. "Your partner, Detective Alvarez. If you've made it this far, you already know, nothing in this case is what it seems. Hit that subscribe button and stay until the end, because the final twist in this story changes everything." Detective Ellen Mercer felt her world tilt. The hum of the ambulance siren faded into white noise as Claire Donovan's words echoed in her head. "Your partner, Detective Alvarez." It didn't make sense. Alvarez had been with her through every step, the late nights, the evidence runs, the long stakeouts. He was steady, reliable, unshakable. But as Mercer stood in that freezing shipping yard, watching the paramedics wheel Claire away, she noticed something that chilled her deeper than the cold ever could. Alvarez wasn't there. When she called his phone, it rang twice before going straight to voicemail. By the time they traced his GPS, his service weapon and badge were already missing from the precinct. He'd vanished, just like Sophie Lane. That night, Mercer sat alone in her office, replaying the entire investigation in her mind. Every moment, every clue, every decision they made together. Alvarez had been the one who insisted they search the Donovan property first. He'd been the one who retrieved the gas station footage, and he'd handed it to her himself. What if the footage had been tampered with? She pulled the files again, this time running them through enhanced forensic filters. That's when she saw it, in the reflection of a truck mirror in one frame, 2 men loading the crate into the container. One was Ryan Donovan. The other was Alvarez. Her stomach dropped. By morning, an arrest warrant was out for Detective Marco Alvarez, 22 years on the force, decorated, respected, now a fugitive. Mercer knew she couldn't trust anyone. She left her badge on the desk, packed her Glock, and drove north. Her destination, Alvarez's family cabin in rural Vermont, the same place he'd once mentioned as his escape spot during tough cases. The roads were silent and wet from rain. The forest swallowed the car's headlights as she turned off the main road, gravel crunching beneath her tires. When she arrived, the cabin looked abandoned, windows fogged, door ajar. But inside, the air was still warm, a coffee mug half full on the table. And on the wall, pinned above the fireplace, were printed photos, hundreds of them. Claire Donovan, Ryan,
Sophie,
Mercer herself. Every suspect, every detective, every location from the case, mapped out like pieces of a puzzle. At the center of the board was a single phrase written in red marker. The system hides everything. Behind her, a floorboard creaked. Mercer spun around, gun raised. Marco. From the shadows, Alvarez stepped out. Older, hollow-eyed, the badge still clipped to his belt. Put the gun down, Ellen. You don't understand. I understand you helped him, Mercer said. You covered for Ryan. You deleted footage. You misled the investigation. Alvarez's voice cracked. I didn't cover for him. I used him. Claire wasn't his only target. She found something bigger. Donovan Logistics was laundering money through federal contracts. Government names, Ellen. Judges. Senators. If she'd gone public, she'd be dead in hours. I tried to protect her. Mercer shook her head. By locking her in a container? She wasn't supposed to stay there that long. Alvarez shouted, his voice shaking.
He panicked.
He was supposed to move her, stage her disappearance. But Ryan lost control. When I realized what he'd done, I tried to undo it, but you were already closing in. Mercer's grip on her gun tightened. You crossed a line, Marco. You destroyed evidence. You let an innocent woman suffer. Alvarez stepped closer, palms raised. You don't get it. You think the department will believe her story? You think they'll believe yours after this? The people behind this, they'll erase us both. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The rain outside grew heavier, pounding against the windows like fists. Then Mercer spoke softly. Then let them come. She squeezed the trigger. The gunshot shattered the silence. Alvarez stumbled back, clutching his shoulder. The pain etched across his face, but Mercer hadn't aimed to kill. Stay down, she said coldly. You're going to live long enough to testify. Hours later, back in Boston, the truth began to unfold. With Alvarez in custody and Ryan Donovan facing charges for kidnapping and fraud, federal investigators uncovered a web of corruption that stretched deep into corporate and political ranks. Claire's testimony became the key to exposing a multi-million-dollar embezzlement ring disguised as government shipping contracts. But justice came with a price. Sophie Lane's body was found a week later in a shallow grave behind the Donovan warehouse. The betrayal ran deeper than anyone could have imagined. In the final interrogation, Ryan finally broke. It wasn't supposed to end like this, he muttered. I did everything they told me to do.
Who?
Mercer asked quietly. Ryan looked up, his eyes hollow. The same people you work for. Then he smiled, that same eerie calm smile he had the first night they met, and refused to speak another word. Months later, Mercer stood alone by the docks where Claire had been found. The shipping containers had been emptied, the site abandoned again. She could still hear the echo of waves against steel, the sound from that haunting video clip. She thought about Alvarez, now in prison, waiting for trial. About Claire, rebuilding her life in hiding. About how easily truth and lies could trade places when power was involved. As the tide rolled in, Mercer whispered, the perfect alibi wasn't about where he was, it was about who made sure no one asked the right questions. She turned and walked away, the reflection of police lights flashing in the distance, red, blue, and white against the dark water. But just before she reached her car, her phone buzzed. An unknown number. One message. You shouldn't have gone looking, detective. The sender's name flashed briefly before disappearing, Marco Alvarez. The timestamp. 2 minutes ago. If you think this story was intense, you're not ready for the next one, hit subscribe because the next case makes this one look like a warm-up.